Hello, greetings, Hare Krishna. My name is Jvalamukhi Dasi, recording the J Files. This is video number 7 in a series. It is my video blog of the book that I have entitled My Hoo-Hoo and the Destiny of the Universe, the Great Golden Age, the Great Sinister Movement, and the Firewalk of a Hare Krishna Kid. So this next section is a very pivotal description, describes a very pivotal point in my life where I made one of those fateful purify me prayers, and nothing was the same after that. So again, thank you for your attention. One day, while visiting the Hare Krishna temple in Florida, I observed a newly divorced man walk across the lawn. I had just spent the last 8 months of my life trying to help him and his family, his now ex-wife and their 2 kids, with the only result being my own loss of life force. I stressed my husband out. I lost money. I neglected the care of my own children. And how many more stories were there like theirs? There were plenty. Why does it burn in my heart when I see couples getting divorced? I ask myself. Why does it bother me so much to see spouse swapping, having affairs, taking people's husbands and wives away from them as they struggle? The pained, confused children, the abusive patterns. Why do I care so much? Why does it keep me up at night? They are chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, right? Why should I care what their lives look like? But I do, and I care very much. I wanted to live in a genuinely authentic spiritual community based on solid religious principles. I wanted to have a happy family and see other happy families. I wanted it to be the way Srila Prabhupada gave it to us. And it wasn't. I wanted to learn from satisfied individuals and the renounced orders of life, not cheaters. I wanted to experience Daivi Varnashram, which is a spiritual society naturally divided by the 4 stages of life and the 4 kinds of natures. It is characterized by the behavior, cooperation, relationships, conduct, and righteousness of the individual and collective actions. What I saw around me was not this. I saw just the opposite. I saw splinter groups formed due to the lack of this kind of society. People just went anywhere so that people would be nice to them and have so-called normal relationships. My heart belongs to Srila Prabhupada, and out of gratitude for his gifts, I wanted to serve him by serving his society in this way. It was hurting, and so was I. I was not much different from the disempowered and dysfunctional people around me. So I prayed for purification, to do whatever it took for the empowerment to do this service, to be an agent of transformation. I pledged my unwavering commitment to follow through with whatever it took to achieve this goal. Little did I know. Dun, dun, dun. Gift number 1. Prayers are powerful and answered almost always in unexpected ways. Prepare yourself to receive. Warning, not to be uttered unless ready. I went before the altar in front of Shishi Radha Shamasundar and opened my burning heart to God. I see suffering, dysfunctional individuals and families unable to live by our spiritual teachings and apply the universal principles of practical love and integrity. Our spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, dedicated his life to give us the process of uncovering our natural loving state. What is happening? What is the root of the problem? Why am I no different? Why am I so ineffective in making positive change in my own life or helping others? Why can't I manifest the simple living, high thinking, peaceful family life that we were shown how to achieve? My dear Lord, before this body becomes old and useless, while I still have some youthful energy, please purify me and thus make me useful in your mission of love. That was my prayer. I desire to see myself as I truly am, so that one day I may be able to see you as you truly are. This last prayer I said with full feeling. My chest felt like it would burst with the intensity of my desire. Tears welling in my eyes, I meditated on the beauty of the Lord and then bowed my head on the marble floor and left the temple room. As soon as I stepped out of the door, I felt as if there were a pull on my heart or a tap on my shoulder from within. I felt the Lord call me back to the altar. I took my shoes off again, re-entering the temple room, offered my obeisances, and stood there silently waiting. Yes, my Lord? I asked in my mind. Loving, all-seeing eyes pierced me. Is that what you really want? He's standing there, Shamasundar, looking at me. Really? How many times had I stood before him? How many promises had I made that I couldn't necessarily keep? I knew this time was different. I meant it with my whole being. I was ready to step off a cliff in faith if called to do so. I paused, feeling the pressure in my chest increase. I answered, yes. I offered my obeisances and left the temple room again. As I reached the doors, the very same sensation was there. Come back in. I turned around again, walked up to the altar and replied, yes. For all I was worth, I dropped to the ground, offering my head at his feet, and again walked out. 2 weeks later, my eldest son fell backwards out of a window. It wasn't a serious injury, but he wasn't able to walk properly, so I took him to a gifted healer, which precipitated the whole inner journey. No one knew, not even myself, that for the past 32 years I had been sitting on a volcano of brutal memories buried so deeply in a wounded psyche, waiting for the touch of one who would become my teacher, who would hold my hand and my heart through the burning eruption needed to explode the buried poison of fear and pain onto the surface of my conscious mind, so that I could become free from its influences which were affecting all aspects of my life and keeping me from being the healthy and whole happy person I desired to be. Years of unending health challenges related to my female organs, an inability to translate all of the creativity and intelligence that was there into any kind of functional life, and the sudden emotional eruptions over even something small like a pot of milk overflowing was going to change. My epic creative dreams, which had been slipping away with each passing year, were actually going to be realized beyond anything I could have imagined. What I encountered made me question everything I thought I knew. To overcome the obstacles I faced, I was forced to go deeper and deeper in search of truth. I grappled for footing in a reality that could accommodate what I found along the path. I could have made different choices. I could have turned back. I could have denied what I saw. I could have just tried to forget. I could distract myself with daily life or addictions. I could have closed the door, but I didn't. I always take medicine straight. I rip the Band-Aid off quick. It's my style. Blunt is best is one of my slogans. Ever since I was a child, I have felt a burning purpose, but I didn't know what it was. I just knew I was supposed to do something important, and something big called me. The problem was, I saw it. I felt it. But it was as if I was wrapped in duct tape, face down, struggling to get the carrot right in front of me, and just couldn't move. What was the problem? Why couldn't I just do what I felt burning in my heart? Why was my life such a messy struggle? I grew up with the idea of reincarnation. My mother arranged the Bhagavad Gita verses into children's songs that we sang. There were numerous examples from India's storehouse of ancient wisdom like the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad Bhagavatam, which I had read for many years. It just made sense. Though the overwhelming responsibilities of my current life gave little time to think about my previous lives, direct experience was about to solidify my belief. A nurse and bodyworker practitioner named Rose, who lived 45 minutes away in a quaint small town, decided to offer a class on cranial sacral work. My son had benefited from her help in healing his injury resulting from the fall out of the window, a common occurrence in a house with 3 young boys. It seemed a golden addition to my arsenal of self-care strategies, along with the herbs and the homeopathics. Both my husband and I attended. Rose appreciated his keen sense of touch and intuition. We were practicing various hand holds, and Rose did a release hold on my lower back. Suddenly, I was not in Kansas anymore. I crossed an invisible boundary, and a wave of grief engulfed my entire being, accompanied by uncontrollable weeping and several sharp screams. Rose allowed me the space on the floor for my experience, and neither interrupted nor interfered. Apparently, she was used to body memories coming up and out. My body responded to her gentle, safe energy, work, and loving hands. After about half an hour, as my processing turned a dark corner, she decided to continue the class. She said, "There will be none of that in my studio. You have catharsed enough." She helped end the process that had started. I was finally able to sit up, but I felt weak and shaken. I curled up and cried. My elder brother kept his arms around me. I was so sad, so very, very sad. My mouth was turned down into a deep frown, so much so that it hurt. I said, "I don't want to come back. I don't want to come back." I didn't want to come back. "It is evil, evil, evil," Rose said. "You had to come back. You had a purpose to fulfill." I just shook my head and cried. It felt so very, very weary. I said, "I am tired." But what I really meant was, I am so tired of all of these painful relationships. This life, I am tired, bone tired. I am tired of this world. At one point, my observing self was glad to hear that I prayed to God for help. In that previous life, I wanted to go home, but I didn't know where that was. I didn't know who he was. Rose said, "The soul never dies. He is born again in the same pod groups. I am sure your son or your husband that you are crying for is with you again. How do you know that the baby that died in that life didn't kill you in the last time around? Maybe he is reborn as one of the 3 sons you have now. Look at your brother. He is tall, with wide shoulders. Maybe he is here again, the man you saw." She tried in several ways to encourage me and get me to appreciate the beautiful family that I had now, not the one I was grieving for. I pulled out somewhat of that other life consciousness. While I was in it speaking, even my voice was different. I was a completely different me. I thanked her and the others for being there with me and apologized. Honestly, I don't ever remember feeling so strongly about anything in this life. What to speak of crying in front of anyone? The emotions were so volatile and horrifying. It left my body racked and utterly exhausted. I was glad for the strong supportive arms of my brother and my husband. So I'm just going to pause there, and I didn't write it in here because it's very private, but I feel that it may have some value for some of you to know what happened. Actually, I'm going to continue reading because I see that I did describe it down here. I couldn't shake the deep sense of sadness and loss. The whole next day, I was the same way. In fact, I experienced my present life like some alien thing. Who was I again? Was I really here? It didn't seem to fit. I felt like a person with amnesia waking up and not recognizing anyone around me, including the person in the mirror. What had just happened? I could still see my former woman's body in the black lake, the blue Chevy van, the night sky, the homemade gurney I had set up so I wouldn't trouble anyone with the cleanup. I still felt the heart-shattering grief and horror of the late-term abortion. He's dead, I screamed again on her table. Wheeled down a hallway on a hospital bed, the fluorescent lights hurting my spinning head, I grieved and grieved. My life was over. He's never coming back. He's never coming back. The awful finality, the blood, his head. I knew there was no fixing it, no going back. My life was over. I could not live with myself. The father of my child in that life was gone. His picture was all I had left of him. It stood in a frame in the small log cabin in the woods by the lake. I was alone, all alone. The water called me to its arms, beckoning relief in its deep stillness, its blackness, its finality. I cleaned the cabin spotlessly, arranged all my belongings, put on my white nightgown, my favorite one, then calmly walked into the water. Choked up with tears, I said a prayer to God I didn't know. Home, I want to go home. Then I drowned. It is quite painful and scary to die this way. Next, I saw myself rising rapidly upwards until the whole scene below me looked just like a little patch of dark, scary woods. The lake where my physical body lay gratefully was getting further and further away. Light was up ahead. The terrain below was a vision of exquisite rolling hills and mountain ranges. The trees were perfect round puffs. They looked almost too perfect, like a cartoon. Beautiful effulgent foliage, the color of pastels, lay way below me as I flew over them. The sun was breaking through the clouds in the perfect sky. It filled me with light and was so beautiful. It looked heavenly. Was this home? The overwhelming emotion was the aching word, home. I want to go home. But I didn't know where that was, and this was not the way to get there. I had cheated. I had committed suicide. I had destroyed the body God gave me to learn with. I'd messed up. This was not home. The beautiful beings, who are the servants of the Lord of Death, stood on either side of me and in the back. With their kind voices, I heard them speak within my head. They consoled me, but I would have to make it right. I would not be allowed to stay. This was only the realm of transition. I had to come back. I really didn't want to. This was my last life, one that ended in tragedy. How perfect are Krishna's dealings. My first lesson in this healing adventure was this. I was shown a preview of the futility of suicide. It simply doesn't work. You can't die because you're eternal. And you have to start right where you left off, or worse. At the time, I thought to myself, that sucks. Realization. Reincarnation is real. I am on a journey. I want to be home, not take another birth, not take another journey. I am soul tired, and I yearned for relief. Songs come to me, note by note, word by word, and they won't let me go until they come out. This one I call the spiritual world. And I could either sing it to you or just read it as poetry, but I think I'll just read it and I'll save the music for later because sometimes the words get lost. I want to live forever in the spiritual world because I don't want to be here. I want to stay forever in the spiritual world, for I'm so done being here. I want to play all day with no bills to pay. I'm tired of living in fear, so damn tired of living in fear. With every step I make, there is peril at hand. Where is the question of peace to be had? Where is the question of peace to be had? But I'm no longer confused, for my path lies ahead, on my way to the spiritual world. I'm on my way to the spiritual world. By His divine grace, I'm getting out of this place and I'm on my way to the spiritual world. On my way to the spiritual world. But the beauty that be is that I don't got to leave to be in the spiritual world, to be living in the spiritual world. All I've got to do is hear about you and bam, I'm in the spiritual world. Hear and sing all day, all day. Hear and sing all day, and then forever shall I stay. Then forever shall I stay. Now I am in the spiritual world, forever in the spiritual world. I want to live forever, forever, forever in the spiritual world. Thank you again. Hare Krishna.